Well, Happy New Year, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It's the first webinar of 2018. Good golly, Miss Molly, the vacation stories or the holiday stories we have heard, ranging from pleasure to our good friends. I'll introduce Simon in a moment. Our good friends over at SureWeb, I would argue, had a little bit of pain with some of the cold that came through, but everybody truly has a story from the holiday season this past year. But it's clearly back to work. We're in technically the second full week of 2018. People are getting serious, so thank you for joining us. We'll get to the topic at hand in a moment. A little bit of housekeeping. As always, use the questions feature to ask your questions. Happy to hit those head on. And then next Wednesday, we start the Tech Talk series, the MSP Tech Talk series. So on screen number 2, if you want to pop over right now on screen number 2, go to smbnation.com and click in the upper right, and you'll see the Tech Talk banner, and you can register for Tech Talk. Always a popular academic series. This year we have winter, spring, summer, and fall quarters with 6 lectures of interest that are academic in nature. And speaking of academic in nature, today is a really cool webinar because we have worked for a couple of months on this webinar with a new outreach mechanism at SMB Nation called the podcast format. I today, just to refresh my own memory, since we recorded these back in Q4, I downloaded them to my phone as an MP3. You can do that at Blog Talk Radio, or if you like, you can also click through on our podcast menu. We're going to give you all that information later. You can go to YouTube, but a couple of ways to get to the podcast. But I listened to it in a morning workout, so I really enjoyed that format. With that said, let's get to the good stuff. So Simon, sir, if you don't mind, go ahead and I believe you have control of the screen. Introduce yourself. Yep. What's the temperature today up in Canada? As I was alluding to you had a cold spell, my friend. What was it? The weather bomb?
Yeah, no, we had here we're in Celsius, and we had -20 for 2 weeks in a row during the vacation, which was very cold. And this week is crazy again. We have it's forecasting 14, so 14 on Friday, above 0, and -20 the next day. So that's like a 34 Celsius difference in 2 days. It's crazy weather. I don't know what's going on.
Good Lord.
Yeah, thank you for introducing, Harry. It's always a pleasure to be talking with you. We had a lot of fun. I think we had some great content from the podcast, as you mentioned, in Q4. So just presenting myself, I'm the channel manager, the marketing channel manager here at SureWeb. So it's a new role, but I've been talking with partners for a long time and with SureWeb for like 6 years. And in my new role, it's super exciting because I get to meet and discuss with more partners again, because I'm now responsible for defining the SureWeb value proposition for channel partners. So it's very important that I understand their reality to make sure that we answer their current challenges. So by doing that, as Harry mentioned, we had 3 very in-depth interviews with 3 partners back in Q4, but also I'm going to talk about some of the today's trend and challenges back in 2017, 18, and it's the current market, because I've talked with, like, I think I've done 19 or 20 interview back in November with partners. So we had a chance to meet them face to face in our Toronto event, Accelerate, that we called it the Accelerate Summit. So I had a chance to sit down in a kind of formal but cozy conversation in front of camera to understand what is their business about, what makes them different, what is their current challenges. So I've highlighted some of the key key trends that we can take out from these interviews in the first part, and then we're going to deep dive in the interview with Harry. So Harry, please, in the second part and even the first part, since you've been interviewing these partners, feel free to interrupt and interject with me.
Absolutely.
Great.
Cool.
So I've tried to categorize the key context or challenges that partners are facing into 4 different. So I have really 4 points that I'd like to talk about in the first part. So the first one, I'd call it the business transformation urgency. Let's go ahead and take a look. This section is not for solution, it's really what's the context. So today's environment is very complex for the cloud. So it brings a level of change that partners need to deal with. And before the change, just understanding what's going on takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of reading, a lot of I've talked about defining the value proposition. That's something that the partners today are dealing with. They need to understand, who am I in this new environment? And it's urgent. Maybe it's not the fact for startups that we've talked with that doesn't really have old processes and are just starting, so it may be a bit easier to start with the cloud. But for partners that's been here for 10 years, it's something that they either gone through in the past 2 years, they're going through it right now, or they know they need to do it very urgently. And it puts some pressure in there, because there's some pressure on their margins, because it's shrinking for what I'd call traditional server and device management. So what they used to be good at, managing servers and PCs and infrastructure, networks, this margin is shrinking. Oh, it's right here. Sorry, I forgot to push. So this margin, this part of their business is shrinking because the big providers like Microsoft and Amazon and Google is all taking that part of the business. So they need to transform. And the customers are now expecting more information management than device management. So to bring really business outcomes. So it's probably not the first time you hear this, but it's definitely something that partners now need to be good at. You used to be good at managing technology. You need to improve yourself at managing information, how to bring really business value to the business. And another thing that's that MSPs needs to transform, and there's another urgency that we've heard from about all the partners, is that they're aware that the customer's buying journey is now moving to a more digital approach. They're aware of that, but they also aware that they may be lacking the marketing skills internally and the marketing approach that is needed for these new type of customers. So that's something that we hear from almost any partners.
Hey, and Simon, let me interject if you don't mind. But on the MSP Tech Talk, folks, the second week of the series, so it's going to be January 24th at noon Pacific. Simon, I hope you'll join us, by the way, as maybe you can lurk as an attendee, but I'm doing my 5 steps in marketing analytics for MSPs. So you're it's a digital world, my friend. Please continue.
Something that we hear from a lot of partners, and that's good, because they're aware of that, and that's the customers are now more they're more informed, and they go on the web and they know what's going on. So you need to catch them there before they reach to somebody else.
Yep.
And another point that's important, again, less important for business that started in cloud, but a lot of our partners are still trying to figure out how to adapt their business operations and finances to the cloud era. So by that we mean we often hear partners asking how they should compensate their sales rep with cloud, because they used to it's kind of hard to figure out how to compensate for a small portion of the business. And also the cash flow is a big important point. When it's a lot of business are still have internal processes where it makes it more interesting for the sales rep and the person internally to sell on-prem stuff, even though they know it's not the right solution. It's kind of the default value because of all the processes around the business that you need to disrupt.
Yep.
The second one is the cloud solutions rapid pace of innovation. This is basically relates to all of the proliferation of cloud solutions that are emerging super fast. So kind of the Slack of this world, or the ways businesses are now doing business. But not only new solutions are emerging, but existing ones are rapidly changing. Just take Office 365, for example. If you, as an MSP, have, I don't know, 10, 20 solutions that you're offering to your customers, being an expert in each and every one of them puts a lot of pressure on your team to know them and to stay on top of that. And when new ones are starting, it takes a lot of effort and time to do the product due diligence. So by that we mean just listing all the possible solutions for an SMB need, analyzing the features, doing the proof of concept, looking at the legal, the contracts, the partnership, the profitability of the solution, how you're going to mark it up. Is it sustainable to offer that to your customers? So there's a lot to do, and it takes time for the partners to do that. And the clients are more informed and less patient. That comes back a little bit to the marketing part that we've talked about. But in some, the customers sometimes will go to the partner saying, "I've done some reading, I've looked into it, and I think that's the solution I need. Can you offer that?" So again, lots of pressure on the partner. And one thing that we noticed talking to the partner, but we see it also in some of the stats that our Microsoft is publishing, but the number of cloud services that each client is leveraging or is using is increasing. A couple of years ago, clients may have had emails, hosted Exchange, or maybe a backup solution, and it was still one of the MSP challenge was still to secure the client or talk about to the client that the cloud was secure and try to sell the cloud. But today it's the complete opposite. Every time a client is renewing an internal system or have a new need, the default thinking is the cloud. They know it's going to be more flexible for them. They know it's going to innovate faster. They know it's going to be more secure. So one feedback that we have is that partners don't need to sell the security that much today. So that means that customers are growing their stack of cloud solutions. And this brings another pressure in terms of time to market. Because if you don't capture these solutions right now, it may be hard to get them later. In the past, with hosted or on-premise solutions, at a certain point, customers needed to renew their stack because if you have hosted Exchange 2007, or as you mentioned, Harry, I think yesterday on the call, where did you start with the SMB server that was out of date?
Yeah, small business server, right.
Small business server that was out of date. Well, these out of date thing are becoming a thing of the past. If a customer is on Office 365 right now, to move away from that, there's not going to be an end of life or something. It's always patching, is always up to date. So you need to capture that customer while he's in this transition, and not because after that's going to be harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'll tell you on the speed thing. Was it Ross Perot, who was actually an IT innovator and then became a presidential candidate in the 1990s? I'm probably dating myself, but Ross Perot was a pretty well-known entrepreneur, and he had a phrase called "fast, fast." And I thought of that. There's certainly the business context, but then there's also sort of the natural disaster context, right? When there's an earthquake or something, speed is critical. And
Yeah.
and basically, people, guys, you need to feel a sense of urgency. That would be my free advice for 2018, is have a sense of urgency. But let's move on. Let's go to your point number 3.
Okay. So taking all of that into consideration, another important point that partners are pointing to could be referenced as a unified client management and billing complexity. That means that it's becoming more complex for them to produce that unified one-stop shop experience, or that unified monthly billing, because they have more and more solutions that are on different bases. Just take a subscription basis for product licenses like Office 365, consumption-based products like Azure, which can defer the billing every month. You have other solutions like Voice that have so many not technical but regulations in terms of the billing with the 911 numbers and stuff like that. So integrating all of that into a single bill for the customer becomes more complex for the partner. And sometimes in terms of management of the client, it duplicates the very low value operations that the partner or sometimes the customer has to do. So just take the example of the email or Office 365. You need to create the client in the Office 365 platform, the billing address, the company name, the domain, all the profile of the partner of the client, and then create the users, adding the services, the licenses, and then the customer wants the voice solution, for example, or another backup solution, and then you have to go on a different portal, create the customer again, and it's all these different management portal that creates a lot of duplications in terms of clerical work for the partner. And also, for some clients, what we've seen is that maybe larger clients has internal like help desk that wants to do that management for their internal clients. They don't want to pay the partner to reset passwords, and not just pay, but sometimes just wait on an external party like the partner to wait to do reset password, to add employees, to remove employees that quit the company or that were fired. If you have like 10 platforms you need to go to shut down the access of the clients versus just one, that's a problem for the partners.
Yep.
And the fourth one is it's a given. It's like skills employee scarcity, is that a lot of partners are saying how much it's becoming hard to recruit, especially with today's economy, where the employment rate is so low. It's so high, in fact, employment rate is high. So especially in IT, there's a lot more demand that is being created than the offer. The offer, which means like students coming out of school. So it's very challenging. And adding that to the rapid pace of innovation that we've talked about, it's putting a lot of pressure on the training cost and time that it needs to have very specialized employees about the cloud solutions that you're offering. And of course, because more clients are adopting more cloud solutions, it creates kind of a scaling roadblock. So if you are not ready, if you don't have the resources to offer either to more clients or more solutions to the same clients, and you're waiting on hiring and training these employees before you offer these solutions that your market is ready and is asking for, it's a roadblock for you to grow. So that's something that partners identified in the couple of interviews that we've had last month.
Simon, on this, I mean, I hear the skilled employee scarcity, and of course skill sets change. But I'll tell you what I saw in December. We did a focus group down in Sunnyvale for a client, and then I had occasion to do a little extra travel and talk to some SMB Nation members. And some of these individuals are seeking employment. Maybe they ran their own firm. They did that, but the SMB Nation demographic, not unlike our industry in general, is a maturing demographic, right? So I'm specifically talking about males over the age of 50, and there's sort of an HR bias, and it's frustrating because these are super good guys, but there's an HR bias to kind of eliminate a male over 50 from even a discovery interview. And Simon, that's to the detriment of the employer, right? Because there's some real skills out there, buddy boy.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to. It's a frustration. I'm sorry. I thank you for the therapy.
That's very good feedback. Yeah. We don't. That's not the people I used to talk with. So it's interesting to have a different point of view.
There you go. All right, my friend. Please continue.
So let's jump into the three very specific scenarios or business model that we interviewed back in I think it was November. The first one starting with Rolling Thunder. But before we get there, we have a special poll question at the beginning of every partner just to see where you at. People on the webinar. So the first one is we'd like to know how you manage the cloud licenses portion of your customer's invoice. By that we mean not your managed services portion, but really the cloud usage or subscriptions of the services you're offering to your customers. Is it through your distributor portal, the manufacturer portal, that would be the Office 365 admin portal, for example, so a third party externally, or manually via Excel spreadsheets and your own internal processes, or automatically using a tool that you've bought, maybe an API that you've developed. So would like to know that.
All right, folks. So if you could answer, and while you're answering, again, just we're not quite at midpoint, but you have joined us on an academic webinar today, generously underwritten by SureWeb, where we're going to talk about some research findings as well as some interviews we did. We're just now getting to the podcast interviews. So, folks, please cast your answer. Jenny, when you're quite ready and you want to close that out, we'll look at the results. Jenny's over in the control room. And here we go. So I'll read them, Simon. We have a large number, 46% are third-party manufacturer distributor portal. 39% are manually with Excel. Mm-hmm. And 14% are automatically with the likes of an API. Mm-hmm. Simon, what do you think about those results?
Well, that's what I would expect, as we hear a lot of Excel spreadsheet. So that's definitely, and probably the ones that said manufacturer or distributor portal doing a bit of both. Sometimes you get a bit of information from third parties, and then you use Excel exports and some process to put all of that together. So that's interesting. Let's take a look at what Rolling Thunder has done with that challenge.
Yep.
Are we there? Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah,
if you
yeah. No, go ahead, and I'll interrupt you, my friend.
okay, so take a look at the left, just a little description of the partner. It's a managed service provider back in Ontario, Canada. So we spoke with the president directly, Derek Sardo, great man. They've been in business for 27 years. So that's a pretty long time for an MSP. But just they started as a training company. So it wasn't really an MSP back in the day, but still they survived by transforming their business and adapting to their market. So that's pretty good. They now have 15 employees, and if I go back to the challenges, one of the main thing that they talked with us is that they didn't want to deal with the ever-changing cloud invoices. That was something that was really crucial for them, and when we interview them, they moved a lot of their client from the advisor program. So their situation was that they loved the advisor program. They didn't have any problem with that, but Microsoft wasn't thinking that way and wanted to close it. So that's something that came out like for all the partners. I think everyone that I've talked about the advisor program just said, I love it. It was working for us. It was great, but we had to move.
Yeah.
And that was pretty standard. And so what they say is that they, contrary to the standard or what I'd say most MSPs want, to deliver that one-stop shop experience, that one bill for the client, that's something that they didn't want to do. They just, no, we don't necessarily want that centralized bill for our customers. We want to bill them for our added value services, our managed services, but everything aside from that, the cloud solutions that they are consuming, we want that to be a separate bill because we don't want to manage that. It's very little value for us to do that, so we don't want to do that. So that was something pretty interesting. So they had, I think it's 500 customers that they needed to migrate from from advisor to the CSP. So it seemed very time consuming. When you look at it, 500 customers, you need to take a lot of resources to copy and paste the client profiles and to do all the work. And sometimes for very small clients, 1 or 2 users. So that's very, that was a lot for them. So some clients needed access for billing and user management. So as we mentioned earlier, that was something that for their biggest client, they needed to have access to that.
Yeah, exactly. And I can add a couple of comments. So folks on the marketing front, what was interesting is Derek in the early days did his marketing. I initially was slightly confused by his motion. I called it a lunch and learn. And he said, no, it wasn't really that. What it was an evening program where they actually charged $250 for people to attend, and they had a waiting list. And this was quite a while ago, but it was about, implementing technology in small business. And then that grew into a radio show that he did for 12 years. And now he's got critical mass, right? Now he's got momentum and standard marketing vehicles and so on. But that was really interesting to hear because, I'll tell you, people kind of laugh at the lunch and learn concept or the evening workshop or whatever, but doggone it, Simon, it still works. It worked 27 years ago. It still works. The other interesting thing about Derek was with automation, with better tools, he's actually gone from 30 employees down to 15. Yeah. And so that was cool that he hit it head on, and we've seen, quite frankly, we've seen that at SMB Nation some that, once we got out of the magazine business, with all due respect, we didn't need an editor. And it's not that the individual wasn't a great person. She was. It's just, Simon, our business model changed.
Mhm.
So just wanted to give some context on our main man, Derek, and he's right outside
Yeah,
Toronto.
and that's something that struck me too when he talked about his winning formula. That for him is what it was to really focus on added value services for its client, and reducing its staff that was doing like very basic administration tasks, and very low added value. He the way he mentioned it, it was really like he wanted focus on project that was bringing business outcomes. So everything we talk about, but he actually did it, and that's something that's probably hard to do. Saying, okay, we're gonna cut down half of the services we do to focus on the highest profitability or added value. So that's something interesting. And by to help them to cope with that, he leveraged the share web portal as a complete automated tool that to build its customers. So basically, at the time, the Cumulus portal was not built to build directly customers on its brand. So
Yep.
it was, if you're going through the advisor program with ShareWeb, it's basically just a referral. ShareWeb is supporting, ShareWeb is billing the customer. So it wouldn't be a Rolling Thunder customer. But we kind of created an hybrid model for him where the billing tool, we added his logo, his company name and everything. So it's really, the bill is coming from Rolling Thunder, but it doesn't have to do anything. The platform is calculating automatically and sending the bill and capturing the credit cards automatically for the client, for the partner. And it's built on their brand, and the support for this partner wanted to do support directly. So it's
Well, and let me just emphasize, because he spent quite a amount of time on it, and folks, you'll hear it when you download and listen to the podcast again, you in your car, your bicycle, whatever your pleasure. But he really liked to minimize the back office function, the billing and operations, and also, Simon, it was also from a cash flow perspective that he didn't
Mhm.
want to manage receivables at that level. Makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's as you, yeah, the cash flow is also something, because you have like a 30 days where you need to um, cope with that. Yeah. So another thing that he leveraged, but that's a more like a one-timer, is the transfer of the 500 clients. They leverage a tool that we've built to do exactly that. So it's a simple tool where you import an Excel that you export from the Office 365 portal, but basically it does everything in a couple of clicks. And the other portion is the resources portion. So again, for him, was super important not to take his own staff off of the core client value to do that, but we put some internal resources to capture the clients, uh, to inform the clients about the transfer and make sure that everything was in order with regards to the credit cards and so forth. So that helped him a lot to do the transfer with very limited impact on his team.
Yep. Amen.
Um, so and also it gave the possibility to some of his clients that he selected to have access to the portal. So again, that was a requirement for them, and now they have some administrator access that they, or billing access that they give to the client, so they can create users, add licenses, remove them, and be a little bit autonomous in that. And it's still all branded Rolling Thunder, so that's pretty good for them. So basically, he's very happy to have his brand in front and center. He doesn't have to deal with that. So we've talked about that. And again, he's one thing that he's very happy in terms of results is that the advisor program was coming to an end. He had 15% at some point, but was reduced to 3%. And then last June, the program was ended, so he had zero commission. But by moving over these existing customers, he started over with a 15% commission for the first year. So that was pretty interesting for all of his clients. But for him, but considering the amount of clients he have, that was a big profit boost.
And Simon, before we move to the next, or go ahead. Go ahead and finish, and then I have a question from Joseph Salazar. I'm going to answer.
I think we've talked about he saved time, he's reduced his payroll, and he's looking forward to add more services in terms of Azure and how to leverage the BI and AI capabilities with Azure in the future.
Yep. So Joseph Salazar has asked, and thank you, Joseph. You've asked, what are the 3 different ways to sell cloud? And it's the 3 podcasts. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put context around that. So with Rolling Thunder, Simon, I'm going to offer one way to sell cloud or run a cloud business. You know, I talked about the evening events and the radio show and that kind of stuff. But I think with Rolling Thunder, I'm going to emphasize operational efficiency as one of the highlights. Why don't we move on to the next one? And Joseph, thank you. I'm going to do that for each of the. I'll kind of summarize each of the 3 individuals in the context of the 3 ways to sell cloud. So Simon, back to you.
Okay. So the next one is New Frontier Technology. For that, I'd like to ask you a little question around if you're supporting directly your customers for the basic vendor solutions you're offering. So are you the front line of support for very basic questions related to the cloud solutions you're offering, or you're referring to the vendor itself or to an external party?
So we have most frequently, occasionally, and rarely. Folks, while you're answering that and we have a moment, again, it's the 3 ways to sell cloud, some secrets from our research and our podcast. Those podcasts are available at smbnation.com over on the drop-down menu podcast. Or, again, a little secret is you can now go to Blog Talk Radio and find the SMB Nation channel and download those as an MP3 and slap those things into your phone or your player and listen in your car. It's pretty cool. All right, Jenny, probably gave him enough time. If you could go ahead and close it out, I'll read the results. 77% most frequently, 9% occasionally, 14% rarely. So overwhelmingly most frequently. Simon?
Yeah, that's an interesting poll, because the next partner we're going to introduce is doing very rarely. Basically, it's the opposite. So they want to outsource that first level support, again, to focus, like Rolling Thunder, on their business, on the more added value services. But it's basically New Frontier Technology. I'm going to go a little bit faster than Rolling Thunder because I see time passed, and you can go in details, as Harry mentioned, by listening to the podcast of every partner. So first, long story short, Pat Beamer, the president, located in next to Seattle, Washington, his challenge, or his business is difference is that they have a variety of clients opportunities, and some are very demanding. Some clients, mostly the ones that don't want the managed services, are very demanding. So it's hard to say no. If for those of you who are doing like consultation, I'm doing some SharePoint consultation myself, and when it's a project based, you get paid for that project, but the client seems to think that they can ask you questions all the time, and you want to keep them for future projects, but it's kind of, you spend time just to say them no. So that's a little bit the situation that New Frontier Solution was at. With the advisor program, they could easily say, go to Microsoft, you're supported by them, you're billed by them, no problem. But when they moved away from the advisor going to CSP, they, contrary to Rolling Thunder, they took that opportunity to say, okay, I'm going to be that one-stop shop for my customer. I want to build them directly and make sure that I'm their trusted advisor. Um, so they wanted to do that consolidated bidding. But they have a big focus on customer fit, and they want to make sure to not waste time answering questions to customers that are not paying for managed services. That's basically what they said. So they are one of the few partners, I could say, at ShareWeb that is using the 3 programs. So they are putting some of their clients under the referral programs. It's the pro, so it's ShareWeb that bills, ShareWeb that supports the customer, but it's their customers for a project, a one-time based project. So after that, if the customer is asking questions to New Frontier Solutions, they can easily drive to ShareWeb. It's the same thing for their co-branded customers, but what Pat Beamer said is that these customers are purchasing an ongoing managed service package. It's not a full-blown package. It's really some very specific solutions that New Frontier Technologies offer, but they're not paying that much, and it would kill their margins if they start answering very low added value questions like, I can't connect to OneDrive, I don't receive my emails, how to configure my Outlook and stuff like that. So they just support their managed service bundle, but everything related to the basic support goes directly to ShareWeb. So for them, it's a win-win situation. And what they aim for is the full managed package, the full managed customer that buys their whole package and that pays, I wouldn't say premium, but that pays for the whole value. And then in that case, they support the customers for any requests. So that's a little bit of an hybrid, and I thought it was an interesting way to think about each customers and to adapt and customize their offer. So basically what it enables them to do is to say yes to just about anything the customers or any business model the customers is asking for. So it helped them grow, and they're not leaking any money anymore for answering all of these small questions to their
I love the way he put that, by the way. That was a that was a good way to put it. Mm-hmm. With the small questions and leaking money.
So that's pretty much what they did. Moving forward, they're looking to expand their MSP business. They've gone through that transition that we talked about at the beginning in the past 2 years. Now they're looking to expand their services and more solutions that are trending and that their customers are asking.
Yeah, and let me add a little value here, Simon, on this conversation. Is that so first of all, Pat Beamer's a rock and roller. That was kind of cool. I thought I could seduce him into a conversation about the Seattle Seahawks. He wouldn't go there. He's a rock and roller and loves rock music. And then the other thing I picked up with Pat was back in your prior point about the community involvement. So the ConnectWise user groups that meet quarterly, the Reddit forum, I had not heard that, the MSP forum up on Reddit. Mm-hmm. But I would offer that kind of circulating is a secret to his success. And he has grown by referral. I don't think he has a huge marketing program, but he's grown by referral and reputation. But I'm going to chalk this one up for Joseph Salazar, who asked the question, kind of what's the secret sauce? And I'm going to chalk this one up to two things: community involvement, and then I also felt Pat Beamer had grown conservatively and stayed focused. Mm-hmm. And that's, Simon, that's harder than it looks, to not chase the shiny lure each and every day that goes by. So Sir, that's my 2 cents. Please continue. There you go.
And I think he learned by mistakes a little bit when he talked about answering all of these small questions for their customers that just had one project a year ago or stuff like that. So he learned, and he now focuses on really what he's good at.
Yeah, we call it stick to the knitting. But okay, let's go to 3 points.
So let's go.
Do we have another poll, by the way?
Yeah, there's a poll. So 3 points. We're going to talk about that in a minute. One questions that we have is that for them is how well integrated are your various solutions that you sell to your clients? So putting like maybe billing is part of it, but we talked about it earlier, more in terms of your internal operations, your management, your portal, how well integrated are all of these solutions when you sell it to your clients?
Yep. So folks, if you could do that while we're waiting, I talked about the podcast last time. Shout out to the MSP Tech Talk series. Starts next Wednesday, 6 weeks, complimentary, academic in nature. Next week, we lead with the infamous Carl Palachuk. I'm in week number 2. And away we go. So we even have some Azure sprinkled in this time. All righty. Jenny, if you want to go ahead and close it out, it's a pretty simple poll question. Got Jenny over in the radio control room. And there we go. So we have the question is, how well integrated are the various solutions you sell to your clients for administration and billing? Good is 30%, just under a third. Fair is 35%, just over a third. And poor is 35%, just over a third. Simon, just at first blush, we have almost an equal. For the sake of today's conversation, it's an equal distribution of answers.
Yeah, that's pretty well split. I would assume that the good partners out there are using probably a paying solution like ConnectWise or another tool that enables them to integrate all of these solutions together. Well, that is becoming one of the main challenge of 3 points, which is, I'd say, one of the most advanced partner that we've talked to.
Yep.
Harry.
Yep. I would agree.
40 plus people, 15 years in business. They seemed pretty solid, offering pretty advanced solution. If I move a little bit forward, their core audience is 10 to 100 PCs. They're not very diversified vertically, although they have some relationship with local construction industries and companies. They capture a big growth with the cloud migration opportunity. That may be a good point in the winning formula. Is that I talked a little bit about it earlier, but capturing that migration to the cloud is really the time. We call it land grab here. It's really the time when you have to capture these clients, because after that, they can be your client for dozens of years. But you have to capture it now, because after that, it may be too late. So they, again, third one, the advisor program was okay for them. They wouldn't have moved if Microsoft wouldn't have forced them, but because of the money they had to leave, they had over 200 clients to move. So again, a lot of operations with very low value for them. Product stack, that was the most advanced partner because of the product stack. I think they not only have Office 365, but one part of their formula is that they start with a low-hanging fruit, and that's probably a lot of partners are doing that, but that's something very important, not to try to oversell or to sell a very complex solution with many solutions. They start with emails, they start with Office 365, a very simple plan, and then once they have that and it's secure, it's very easy to move up the stacks and add SharePoint and try to work out how they can build an intranet for that. because one thing that they have, if I move a little bit forward, is that they have development in-house. So that's pretty advanced in terms of MSP and most specifically SharePoint development, which is becoming rare. But they're also working on Teams, Skype. They have cloud servers, backup, but also VoIP data services, lots of security services, monitoring and networking. So a bit more standard, but still, they have a very diversified portfolio of solutions and always looking to the next big thing. One thing maybe that we can mention is the Sheila Dole Foundation. Kevin Dole was pretty innovating in creating, not innovating, that's not the right word, but he had an experience in the past and used that to help others. So we strongly recommend that you take a look at his foundation and donate.
Yeah, well, let me talk about that, because there's a couple of angles on this. One was, and this would be part of his secret sauce. I have a couple ideas on his secret sauce, but one of them was authenticity, and not that the other two individuals were, unauthentic. That's not my point. But with Kevin Doyle, he lost his mother to violence when he was 17, and went on to create a foundation in her name to help teenagers in high school who lose a parent or loved one to violence. And so he's kept that going for many, many years, and I think that's given that certainly filled his bucket in terms of community involvement and giving back. He's also active in the MSP Alliance, a trade group that's out there that y'all might want to take a look at, and a few other avenues, the Microsoft Partner Conference and so on. But yeah, with Kevin, authenticity, he is eager to grow, so he's kind of viewing it a little bit different than our partner up in the Toronto area who was looking to, a little more operational excellence, and he could reduce the staff. I'm not, and again, Simon, I'm not suggesting Kevin doesn't appreciate operational excellence. Of course he does. And then what struck me in this, and I would put it in the secret sauce category, is growing above and beyond into the product stack. Okay, so you have Teams, you have Azure, you have some other things, and folks, you got to grow to go in this line of work. So I'm going to chalk that up. Joseph is secret number 3. Joseph hit me back a little while ago up on the Q&A format. He says he loves Carl. Yes, Joseph, we all love Carl Palachuk. All right, Simon, back to you, my friend.
Yeah, so I think you nailed it when you talked about like the involvement and everything. And maybe one other thing is, again, circling back to the question that we asked, he's using an Excel export for his billing in one of many other things he talked about. But what he's looking to do is to centralize the other solutions he has everywhere, because now he can export that he called it, I think it's an Excel dump, but still he loves it because it's well categorized and organized. And for him, having one Excel dump instead of 10, because he used to have many other platforms, it's way simpler. So he has one Excel dump, and then it gets his billing and internal administration very much easy for all of these solutions. So very, very interesting.
Please continue. Yeah, very cool.
So just to close on that, I have a little analogy that I like to make people understand who we are at ShareWeb, and it's with all of these market forces and changes, you may feel like you have a bad feeling as an MSP, being stuck in a garbage can, not can, but what's that? A garbage. dump.
Oh, it
or
looks like a garbage dump, I'll tell you
Yeah,
that.
with the walls closing in on you, and your first feeling might be to try to get you out of it by yourself and trying to get the tools you have and do it by yourself. But sometimes you need an external person or robot or blue guy that has the key or the expertise to do it for you. So that's a funny a funny image or analogy that I like to use to make people understand how we can help partners to get out of trouble, or to solve their problem. So just a little overview of what makes us a bit different is that we really believe in an engaged partnership with our partners. It's not just a number, but it's really a relationship, and we put a lot of investment and effort on our platform to make sure that it saves time and it's super simple and intuitive for our partners to use. And we make our internal expertise accessible. We make sure that our staff is top notch and knows every solution that we make available to our partners, and that can help our partners sell them, support them, and grow and accelerate their cloud business. So that's pretty much it for today. I hope you enjoyed. Harry, thank you for having us. That's always a pleasure. And feel free to engage if you have any questions.
Absolutely, and thank you for supporting our community and being a good supporter, Simon. You get it that we're trying to come to market with real research and real value, and the conversations you had one-on-one in Q4, the podcast we did, I think have met that high bar of quality. Folks, one more pitch on the podcast is that if you go to the click through at SMB Nation, you'll see the video component. I like the video component because, again, it's authentic, right? We're having not just a technical conversation, but a life and business conversation. If you go to Blog Talk Radio, you're going to get the ability to download it and check it out in your car, and I understand that too. I saw an uptick. We added about another 20 people, it looks like, to the MSP Tech Talk that starts next Wednesday. Folks, click at smbnation.com, upper right on MSP Tech Talk. Join us for winter quarter, but there's no exam, Simon, so everybody's a winner. And thank you much. Oh, we had a question roll in. I can take one or two questions. Marcia, thank you for the question. And we have, Simon, she's asking, does SureWeb have a U.S. company and server that manages the U.S. partners? So we're talking about geography. Marcia, if I could be so bold, maybe we're talking about some data storage issues. Mm-hmm. Simon?
Yes, we do have a data center in the U.S. for hosting services. But it depends. It really depends on the service you want, because we've transitioned from hosting for traditional hosting to a distributor, and most of our business right now is really distributing like a specialized distributor for Microsoft, for example. So all the Office 365 services are hosted by Microsoft in Canada, in US, and everywhere they have data centers. But again, we have hosted Exchange, we have our backup solution, our cloud servers that can be hosted in US. Yeah.
Okay. Got time for one or two more questions. We are at time, but thank you, Marcia, for asking a question. Folks, if you want to kick them out using the Q&A feature in your control panel, please do. If not, we'll call it a win for the first webinar of 2018. My goodness gracious. And Simon, this picked up my spirits because I'm a little depressed. I'm a little depressed that in the NFL, my Seattle Seahawks didn't even make the playoffs, Simon. We're used to watching football on Sundays in January. Ain't going to happen. So my spirits are uplifted just by having a little bit of therapy with the crowd today. All right. Looks like, Simon, we're clear on the questions. Thank you very much. Jenny, thanks for your help in the control room. And, we have Rodney Hall saying the Philadelphia Eagles have made it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, they have. All right. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you next Wednesday for MSP Tech Talk. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.